The night was cold, with the wind howling through the empty hills. In the distance, the soft crunch of footsteps could be heard as Jake, a seasoned human soldier, made his way through the rugged terrain. His boots pressed firmly against the hard earth, and his breath came out in foggy clouds, visible in the moonlight. His loyal dog, Rex, a trained military canine, walked beside him, sniffing the air and keeping close to his master. Jake had been out on a routine patrol, nothing unusual. For him, he had fought many battles and survived many missions, but tonight felt different. The quiet of the night seemed too still, too calm, as if the very land was holding its breath. Rex's ears perked up, and he stopped, sniffing the air sharply. Jake turned his head, his instincts kicking in. Something was wrong. Before he could react, Rex bolted forward, running into the dark underbrush. Jake cursed under his breath and sprinted after him, calling his name. "Rex, get back here!" But Rex was already too far ahead, his strong legs carrying him swiftly through the brush. Jake followed, his heart pounding in his chest, adrenaline surging through his veins. What could it be? Another animal? A trap? He couldn't afford to let his guard down. Rex suddenly stopped. Jake slowed down and came up behind him, his breath quick and shallow. He saw the dog standing still, nose to the ground, his body tense. Rex was staring at something. Jake squinted in the darkness, trying to make out what it was, and then he saw it, a figure. An alien lying motionless on the ground. Jake froze, his heart skipping a beat. It was a soldier, but not like anything he had ever seen before. The creature was tall, with greenish skin and armor that shimmered faintly under the moonlight. It was wounded, badly. Blood, no, some sort of thick dark fluid was pooling around the alien's body. Its chest rose and fell weakly, showing that it was still alive, barely. Rex growled softly, stepping closer, his body low to the ground. Jake could see the sharpness in the dog's eyes. He was on high alert, his instincts telling him that this was no ordinary encounter. Jake's mind raced. He had been trained to fight the aliens, not help them. The enemy had been relentless in their attacks, wiping out entire human colonies without mercy. He had watched his comrades fall to their weapons, heard the screams of the innocent as the alien forces ravaged the planet. To see one of them lying here, wounded and helpless, was a shock. Jake's hand instinctively reached for the weapon at his side, but he didn't draw it. Something in him stopped. He had never been one to let an enemy suffer, but this was different. He had fought for survival, but never for cruelty. Was it possible that this alien was different from the others? Rex stepped closer to the alien, sniffing it carefully. The creature's eyes fluttered open for a brief moment, and it let out a low moan, its alien eyes locking onto Jake's. There was something in those eyes, something that made Jake pause. It was fear. Fear of death. Jake crouched down, his gaze never leaving the alien. He knew he had to act quickly. The alien could be a danger, but it could also be a chance. A chance for information, for survival. If he left it here, it would die. If he took it with him, he could learn something that could help them win the war. But was it worth the risk? The alien could be a trap. The enemy was known for their deception. Jake's thoughts raced as he watched the alien struggle to breathe, its chest rising and falling in shallow gasps. Rex barked, pulling Jake out of his thoughts. Jake turned to see the dog looking at him with an expression that said it all. Rex trusted him. Rex had always been by his side, loyal and unwavering. If Rex sensed something, Jake knew it had to be real. Without another thought, Jake reached down and carefully lifted the alien soldier. It was heavier than he expected, and its body was cold to the touch. The alien groaned, its head lolling against Jake's arm as he carried it. The journey back to their base wasn't long, but it felt like an eternity. The weight of the alien in his arms seemed to grow heavier with every step. Jake's thoughts were clouded. What if this was a trick? What if it was a weapon, set to explode once it was in their grasp? But as he walked, a strange sense of resolve settled over him. This was the right thing to do. Maybe the alien soldier wasn't like the others. Maybe there was more to the story than he had been told. The war had made him bitter, made him distrustful, but it also made him question. He couldn't help but wonder, what if the future of humanity wasn't about defeating the aliens, but understanding them? What if the enemy was not just an enemy after all? When Jake reached the base, he didn't know what to expect. But one thing was clear. The moment he brought this alien inside, everything would change. He just didn't know how much. Rex walked by his side, ever watchful, as they entered the camp. Whatever lay ahead, Jake knew he wasn't alone. And that thought gave him a strange sense of hope in the midst of an uncertain future. The camp was quiet when Jake arrived, the faint hum of the generators barely breaking the stillness of the night. Rex trotted beside him, his steps as silent as ever, though his ears were alert. Jake felt the weight of the alien soldier in his arms, its body cold and lifeless, yet it still breathed, barely. Each labored breath sent a chill through Jake. The creature knew this being had been an enemy, but here it was, in his arms, in his camp. As Jake walked deeper into the camp, his mind spun with thoughts. His mind screamed to leave it. This is insane, Jake. He could already hear his superior officers yelling in his head. You can't bring a wounded alien back here. What if it's a trap? He glanced around the camp. The soldiers he passed looked at him with a mix of confusion and suspicion. No one dared ask what was happening. The alien soldier didn't belong here. But Jake wasn't sure if he cared anymore. Rex stopped at the entrance to the medical tent, his eyes staring straight ahead. It was as though he knew exactly where they were headed. Jake gently set the alien on one of the examination tables inside the tent. He took a step back, his hands trembling for the first time in years. He had seen plenty of death, plenty of blood, but this was different. This was not just another battle wound, it was more than that. There was a strange sense of urgency in the alien's presence, a sense that told Jake there was more to this moment than just a random encounter in the wilderness. The tent was filled with the soft beeping of monitors and the rustling of medical staff preparing their equipment. The doctors, upon seeing the alien, froze for a moment before going to work, starting with checking the vital signs. Jake stood there, unsure of what to do next. He could feel their eyes on him, questioning his decision. Jake, are you out of your mind? One of the medics, Lt. Thompson, spoke up. His voice was harsh, his eyes filled with disbelief. What the hell is this? An alien soldier? Jake looked back at him, his jaw set. It's hurt. It needs help. Help? Thompson scoffed, stepping back. It's the enemy, Jake. It's going to kill us all. The words stung, but Jake couldn't shake the feeling that there was more at play here. This wasn't just another enemy. This alien had been vulnerable, just like them. And when he had seen those eyes, something inside him had snapped. He couldn't ignore it. Not now. I know what it is, Jake replied firmly, staring at the alien soldier's still body. But I'm making the call. Get me some blood samples. Thompson, and get the med team in here. We're not letting it die. Thompson muttered something under his breath, but left to gather the necessary equipment. Jake turned his attention to the alien's wounds. The fluid leaking from the soldier was strange, dark, thick, almost like tar. He had never seen anything like it before. The alien's breathing was shallow, its once proud posture now slumped and defeated. As Jake moved closer, his hands brushed against the alien's armor, and the strange metallic surface hummed beneath his fingertips. There was something almost alive about it. A flicker of movement caught Jake's eye. The alien's hand twitched, a faint gesture that sent a ripple of shock through him. It wasn't dead after all. It was barely alive, but it was alive. The realization hit him like a jolt of electricity. He had brought an enemy back to life, not a monster. Not a mindless soldier, but a living, breathing being. Jake hesitated for a moment, staring down at the alien soldier's face. Its features were unlike anything human. The skin was smooth, with subtle patterns that looked almost painted on. Its eyes, when they had opened briefly in the wilderness, were unlike any eyes he had seen before, large, dark, and full of sorrow. They had looked at him with desperation, with fear, and that fear had only fueled his decision to save it. But now, in the dimly lit medical tent, the consequences of his decision began to weigh on him. He knew the higher-ups wouldn't approve. They would see this as an act of treason, an unforgivable mistake. They had been trained to fight these creatures, not save them. And even though he had acted with the best of intentions, Jake knew he had crossed a line. The sound of footsteps behind him snapped Jake back to reality. It was Lt. Thompson again, followed by 2 other medics. They had the necessary tools to examine the alien, but Jake could see the unease on their faces. "What now?" Thompson asked, a hint of impatience in his voice. "We can treat it, but we don't know what this thing is capable of. If we wake it up," Jake turned slowly to face him. "We treat it," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We don't know what it wants, but we can't let it die. Not like this. Not without knowing the truth." The tension in the room was thick, but it was undeniable. Jake had made his decision, and now there was no turning back. He had taken a wounded alien back to base, against the advice of his superiors and the warnings of his team. And whatever came next, Jake would face it head-on. As the medics began their work, Jake stepped back, his mind swirling with uncertainty. He didn't know what was going to happen, but deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a mistake. This was a chance to understand the enemy, a chance to make peace, even if it was impossible. The alien's fate and the future of the war now rested in his hands. And in the back of his mind, one question remained. What if the enemy was not who he thought they were? Asterisk. The alien lay motionless on the examination table, its chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. The medics had done what they could, patching up the most severe wounds, but the creature was still unconscious, its alien physiology unlike anything the doctors had ever encountered. Jake watched from the corner of the room, his arms crossed, his mind restless. The situation was far from simple, and he could feel the weight of his decision pressing on him with every passing second. It was late now, and the base was quieter than usual. Most of the soldiers had turned in for the night, but Jake couldn't sleep. His thoughts kept circling back to the alien. What was it? Why had it been left to die in the wilderness? How had it ended up alone? And most of all, why had he felt the need to help it? The soft beep of the heart monitor was the only sound in the room as Jake stood up and approached the alien. His hand hovered over the creature's arm, as if he could somehow read its story by touch alone. The alien's skin was cold to the touch, but there was an odd warmth that seemed to pulse beneath the surface, like something alive and waiting to be awakened. Suddenly, the alien stirred. It was so subtle that Jake almost missed it, but the slight twitch of its fingers caught his attention. He stepped back, unsure whether to wake it. But before he could decide, the alien's eyes snapped open, glowing faintly in the dim light. Jake froze. For a moment, neither of them moved. The alien's gaze locked onto Jake's, and for the first time, Jake saw something he hadn't expected: intelligence, fear, desperation. The alien blinked, as though trying to process its surroundings, and Jake could almost feel the weight of its confusion. It didn't attack, though. It just lay there, struggling to breathe, its chest heaving with effort. "Easy," Jake murmured, his voice low, as if trying to calm a wounded animal. He had no idea if it understood him, but he felt the need to reassure it. The alien's eyes narrowed, as if studying him. Then, in a voice that was more of a rasp than words, the alien spoke. "Human ... Jake's heart skipped a beat. The alien had spoken in perfect English, but there was something haunting about the way it said the word. Like it had been trapped for far too long and had only just found the strength to speak. The medics, who had been working nearby, looked up in shock. Thompson stepped forward, but Jake held up a hand to stop him. "Do you understand me?" Jake asked, speaking slowly. The alien's lips curled into something resembling a smile, though it was a twisted, pained expression. "I understand." The words hung in the air like a heavy weight. Jake's mind raced. How was this possible? The aliens had been using their own language, a strange mix of sounds that no human had been able to decode. To hear this one speak in English, perfectly, was baffling. The alien's eyes shifted toward Rex, who was standing in the corner of the room, his ears perked. The dog let out a low growl, but Jake quickly silenced him with a glance. "Why were you out there alone?" Jake asked, his voice calm but filled with a quiet urgency. "Why didn't your people come for you?" The alien's gaze drifted downward, its chest rising and falling in slow, ragged breaths. "Betrayal," it whispered, barely audible. "Left to die." Jake's eyebrows furrowed. Betrayal? Was this alien trying to tell him something? It seemed like it was speaking more than just words. It was speaking a truth. "What happened?" Jake asked, his voice softer now. The alien's eyes met his again, and this time there was something else in them. A flicker of something Jake couldn't quite place. But before the alien could respond, there was a sharp beep from the heart monitor. "Vitals are crashing." Thompson shouted, "We need to stabilize it now." Jake stepped back, watching as the medics rushed to the alien's side. The alien's breathing had become even more erratic, and its body convulsed in pain. The room filled with the sounds of frantic activity, but Jake stood frozen, his mind spinning with what he had just heard. Betrayal. Left to die. Those words echoed in his mind as the medics worked. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just another war story. This wasn't just an alien soldier who had been abandoned by its comrades. There was something deeper here. Something the alien wasn't telling him, and something Jake was starting to suspect. The alien's hand twitched again, but this time it was different. There was purpose behind it. It reached out slowly, as if fighting against the pain and weakness in its body. Jake didn't know what to expect, but before anyone could react, the alien's fingers brushed against the edge of a nearby device, a small metallic disc that had been lying on the table. At the touch of its fingers, the device hummed, glowing faintly. The alien's eyes widened, and for the first time since it had woken up, it seemed fully aware of what was happening. A low whisper escaped its lips, barely audible. "Activate ... The word was barely more than a breath, but it carried with it a sense of urgency. The medics didn't notice, focused on their work, but Jake's eyes locked onto the device. Something about it was different, something ... important. And just like that, Jake knew that what he had just discovered was the beginning of something far bigger than a wounded alien soldier in need of medical care. He glanced down at the alien, whose eyes were now closed again, its body trembling in the aftermath of the sudden spike in activity. Was this a weapon? Was it an invitation? Or something else entirely? Jake didn't know yet, but he was about to find out. The next morning, the sun barely pierced through the thick clouds that hung over the military base, casting everything in a muted gray light. Jake stood outside the medical tent, his eyes scanning the horizon. His mind was still tangled in the web of questions that had formed since the alien had spoken. What was it trying to tell him? What had been activated by that strange device? And most importantly, why had the alien chosen to trust him? He hadn't gotten much sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the alien's desperate gaze, heard its whisper. Activate. It was as if those words had been burned into his brain. Whatever was going on, it was bigger than anything he had ever experienced before. Inside the tent, the alien had stabilized barely. The medics had done their best, but no one truly knew how to treat a species so different from their own. Still, its condition had improved enough for Jake to speak with it again. But he didn't know where to begin. How do you talk to an enemy? Soldier who has just been abandoned by its own kind. How do you trust someone or something that could turn on you at any moment? But Rex, standing at his side, seemed calm, his eyes fixed on the entrance to the medical tent. The dog trusted. The alien. If Rex trusted it, maybe Jake could. With a deep breath, Jake pushed through the flap of the tent and entered. The alien was awake now, its eyes flicking over the room with a mix of confusion and wariness. Jake moved toward the bed slowly, not wanting to startle it. Rex followed, sitting by Jake's side, his eyes fixed on the alien with an intensity that made Jake feel strangely reassured. The alien's gaze locked with Jake's, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. It was the same look it had given him before, eyes full of mystery, full of something Jake couldn't quite understand. There was a sense of urgency in its silence, as though it was waiting for Jake to say something. "How are you feeling?" Jake asked, his voice quieter than before. The alien took a shallow breath and, despite the pain it must have been feeling, managed a small nod. Its voice was hoarse, strained, but still understandable. Better than before. Jake leaned closer, studying the alien's face, the strange markings on its skin, the faint glow in its eyes. It was alien, but it wasn't a monster. It was a soldier, just like him. And that realization hit him harder than any blast he had endured in combat. "I need answers," Jake said, his voice steady. "Why were you left out there to die, your people? They abandoned you?" The alien's eyes flickered with something. Jake couldn't quite place. Regret, maybe. "Betrayal," it said again, the word like a ghost. "My people don't no longer follow the path. They seek power, not peace." Jake was silent for a moment, processing its words. The alien species had been humanity's most dangerous enemies for years, and now this soldier was saying they were changing? "What are you talking about?" Jake pressed. "Your people have been fighting us for years. You've killed thousands of us." The alien shifted uncomfortably on the bed, its breathing shallow again. "We were forced. The leaders of my people, they twisted our cause. They lied. They said your kind would destroy us. But I saw the truth. I saw what my people became." Jake watched the alien closely, his mind racing. Could it be possible? Could this alien be telling the truth? It seemed like too much to believe. They had fought for so long, each side locked in a brutal war with no room for trust or peace. But if what this alien said was true, before Jake could respond, the alien reached for the device that had been left on the table beside it. The alien's hand trembled, and Jake could see the deep pain in its movements. It was like it had just enough strength left to reach out. "I must show you," the alien said, its voice weak but urgent. Jake hesitated, then stepped closer, his curiosity outweighing his caution. He had no idea what the alien intended to show him, but something in its eyes told him it wasn't a trap. The alien pressed a button on the device, and instantly, a holographic image projected into the air above them. Jake took a step back in surprise. The image was of a planet large, beautiful, and peaceful. But it wasn't Earth. The landscape was different, filled with tall, glowing structures and lush forests. There were no signs of war, no signs of destruction. Instead, the image portrayed what seemed like a utopia, a place of harmony between alien species. "This is what we were," the alien said, its voice trembling with a kind of sorrow. "Before the war. Before the leaders twisted our people's purpose." Jake stared at the image, his mind spinning. The alien had shown him something unexpected, something that went against everything he had been taught. These beings who had been his enemies had once lived in peace. But something had gone horribly wrong. The hologram flickered and shifted, showing a second image. This one was darker, filled with images of battles, fire, and destruction. The aliens' homeworld was no longer the beautiful place it once was. It was now a wasteland shattered by war, ruled by corrupt leaders. The leaders of my people... The alien's voice faltered. They sought power. They wanted to conquer, to control, and they manipulated us. Used us as weapons. Jake was quiet, the weight of what the alien had just shown him sinking in. His heart raced as he thought about the implications. If what the alien said was true, if its people had been manipulated, then the war they had been fighting might not have been as simple as good versus evil. For the first time, Jake realized that maybe they weren't so different after all. Maybe, just maybe, they both had the same enemy's corruption, power, and greed. Why come to us? Jake finally asked. Why did you seek us out? Why trust me? The alien's gaze softened for the first time. I had no choice. They abandoned me, left me to die. I saw the truth, and I knew you would too. I need your help. Together we can stop them. We can end this war. Jake stared at the alien for a long moment. The choice in front of him was clear. He could continue to fight, to stay loyal to his country, his people. Or he could listen to the alien, believe that there was a way to stop the bloodshed. It was the hardest decision he had ever faced. But in that moment, with the alien looking at him, Jake knew one thing for sure. He couldn't turn his back on this. Not now. Not when the truth was finally within reach. The camp had never felt so tense. Every creak of the tent's flaps, every whisper of the wind through the trees, seemed louder than usual, amplifying the uncertainty that weighed heavily on Jake's mind. The decision he had made to trust the alien soldier had shifted something deep inside him. But now, as the day wore on, it felt like a countdown was ticking, one that would soon catch up to him. The war they had been fighting might not be as clear-cut as he once thought, and the more he uncovered, the more dangerous it seemed. Jake had kept the alien's revelations close to his chest. No one else knew about the device or the holographic images it had shown him, the peaceful planet, the manipulation by corrupt leaders. No one except him and the alien. The question gnawed at Jake. If the aliens' people were once peaceful, then who had started the war? Was it their own leaders who had twisted the truth? Or was it something darker, something far more sinister? As Jake paced near the medical tent, lost in thought, Rex's sudden growl broke his concentration. The dog was sitting at the edge of the camp, his fur bristling. Jake instinctively reached for his weapon, but stopped when he noticed the tension. In Rex's stance, it wasn't a threat from the outside. It was something internal. Easy, Rex, Jake muttered, walking over to the dog. But as Jake moved closer, he noticed something that made his heart race. A figure, hidden in the shadows, was moving toward the medical tent, silent and quick. It was one of his own soldiers, PVT. Simmons. Jake's eyes narrowed as Simmons approached, glancing around cautiously. There was something in the way the soldier was moving, the look on his face. It wasn't just a casual walk. Jake's instincts kicked in, and without a second thought, he followed Simmons, staying just out of sight. Rex remained behind, alert but obedient. Simmons entered the medical tent, and Jake waited for a few moments before sneaking up to the tent flap. He didn't know what Simmons was up to, but whatever it was, Jake wasn't going to let it slide. What he overheard next sent a chill down his spine. I can't believe you're letting that thing live. Simmons' voice was low, filled with disgust. We're at war with them, and you're keeping one in our own base? The words made Jake freeze. He peered through the crack in the tent, his heart racing. Inside, Simmons was speaking to L.T. Thompson. The tension between them was palpable. Simmons was pacing while Thompson stood, arms crossed, listening. Jake had never seen Thompson act this way before. The usually calm, collected medic was clearly uncomfortable, but he wasn't speaking out against Simmons. "I didn't want to do it," Thompson said quietly, his voice filled with regret. "But Jake, he made the call. He believes the alien might know something important. It could be the key to ending the war." "Ending the war?" Simmons scoffed. "The only thing that thing's going to end is us. And you're just going to sit there, letting him risk all of our lives? This is crazy." Jake's blood ran cold. He had always known there were some soldiers who didn't trust him, who saw him as too soft, too willing to question orders. But hearing it out loud, hearing them talk about him like that, it hit harder than he expected. "We have to act fast," Simmons continued, lowering his voice. "We can't let Jake jeopardize everything. If that alien wakes up and turns on us, we're all dead. We need to take control, and we need to do it now." Jake's heart thudded in his chest. He had been right. There were those within his own ranks who saw his actions as a betrayal, a weakness. Simmons wasn't just talking about the alien. He was talking about Jake, too. It was clear now Simmons wasn't just questioning the aliens. Safety. He was planning something far darker. Thompson hesitated, his eyes flicking toward the table where the alien lay. "I don't know, Simmons. What if Jake's right? What if we're being misled by the real enemy and not the alien?" Simmons' voice hardened. "There's no what if. We can't afford to let doubt cloud our judgment. The aliens' people aren't going to change, and if Jake thinks they will, then he's fooling himself." Jake's pulse quickened. He had to act now before Simmons and his supporters decided to make a move. They were planning something. They didn't just want to eliminate the alien, they wanted to eliminate him too. He couldn't let that happen. Before he could decide what to do next, Rex's growl broke through the tension. Jake turned sharply, seeing the dog's fur standing on end. Simmons had noticed too, and now Jake's cover was blown. "You!" Simmons yelled, spotting Jake in the shadows. "You've been eavesdropping? You should have stayed out of this." Jake stepped into the tent, his hand resting on his weapon, but his voice calm. "I'm not the one planning to betray my own team, Simmons. What's going on here?" Simmons lunged forward, a flash of anger in his eyes. "You're weak, Jake. You've been making mistakes since you brought that alien in. I won't let you get us all killed because of some ridiculous sympathy for the enemy." Jake's jaw tightened. "You don't get to make that call, Simmons." Before the situation could escalate further, L. Thompson stepped between them, his face pale. "This isn't the time, Simmons. We're all on the same side here." But the unease in his voice betrayed him. Jake could see the doubt creeping into Thompson's eyes too. "You don't get it, do you?" Simmons hissed, his voice low and dangerous. "You think we're the good guys fighting for our homes. But the truth is, we're just as much a part of this mess as they are. You're too blind to see it." Jake didn't wait to hear more. "You're right about one thing, Simmons. I'm not blind. And I'll make sure everyone here knows who the real enemy is. And it's not just out there." He pointed sharply at the base camp, his voice filled with finality. "It's here." 2. The air grew thick with tension as Simmons glared at Jake, his anger boiling over. Jake didn't flinch. He had made his choice, and there was no turning back now. Jake had trusted the alien, and in turn, the alien had trusted him. But the truth was now clear. This war was no longer just about fighting enemies from the outside. It was about fighting the betrayal that was festering within his own ranks. The morning after Jake's confrontation with Simmons, the tension in the camp was palpable. Whispers filled the air like an unspoken storm, and Jake could feel the weight of his decision hanging over him. The loyalty of his soldiers was now in question. His own comrades were divided, and the path ahead seemed less certain with every passing minute. Jake couldn't afford to focus on that, though. His eyes were on the alien soldier, who was now fully awake, sitting up and trying to steady its breathing. It was weaker than it appeared, but there was a resilience in the alien's gaze, a quiet determination that seemed to speak louder than words. The alien had trusted him, and now Jake felt an even deeper responsibility to find out what the alien truly knew. Simmons' threat echoed in his mind. If that alien wakes up and turns on us, we're all dead. It was a fear Jake could not ignore. But at the same time, he knew that the alien's words, the truth it had shown him through the device, held more significance than anyone had yet realized. Something bigger than any of them had been set in motion, and Jake couldn't turn back. Now the war wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about changing the course of history. The sun was setting when the first sign of trouble appeared. Jake was in the command tent, going over reports and thinking through their options, when a sharp beeping from one of the base's scanners broke through his thoughts. He glanced at the readout. A large alien ship was approaching faster than any of their surveillance systems could track. His heart sank. This wasn't just a scout ship. This was a full-on assault vessel, and it was heading straight for their camp. "Jake, we've got a problem," Thompson's voice crackled through the radio, interrupting his thoughts. "It's the fleet. They're here. The one we've been tracking, and it's closing in on us." Jake didn't hesitate. He grabbed his weapon and ran toward the perimeter. The soldiers were already moving into defensive positions, but Jake knew this was more than just a routine attack. The alien who had come to him for help, had it been a trap all along? Had they sent it to mislead him, to let their forces get this close to the base? As he ran, Rex at his side, Jake's thoughts raced. If the alien had truly been abandoned by its people, then why was the fleet here now, so soon? Was the alien soldier part of something bigger? Or had it been sent to deliver them straight into the hands of an enemy who had been watching them all along? But when he reached the outer walls of the camp and saw the incoming assault vessel hovering above, his doubts faded. The alien's betrayal was not what he feared. It was something much more sinister. The ship's cargo bay doors opened, and hundreds of enemy soldiers, more advanced, more ruthless, began to pour out onto the ground. This wasn't just a skirmish. It was an invasion. "Everyone, get to your stations," Jake shouted, his voice carrying across the camp. He didn't have time to explain what had happened, to explain the alien's intentions. All that mattered now was surviving. They had been thrown into the fire, and only one thing would keep them from being burned alive. Unity. As the soldiers scrambled to their positions, Jake's eyes met the alien soldiers who was standing by the medical tent, watching everything unfold. The alien's posture was different now, stronger, more focused. It looked at Jake with a nod, as if it understood what was about to happen. This wasn't the time for questions. This was the time for action. The alien raised its hand, and a strange hum filled the air. The device it had brought with it, the one that had shown Jake the peaceful images of its world, flared to life. It projected a new hologram, not of peace, but of a weapon. A massive glowing orb of energy appeared in the air, rotating slowly, crackling with power. The alien's people had used it before. Jake recognized it now, a weapon capable of mass destruction. "We have to stop them before they use it," the alien said, its voice calm but urgent. "This weapon will destroy your world. It is the last resort of the corrupt leaders who betrayed us." Jake's eyes widened. He knew what the alien was saying was true. The enemy had weapons like this. But this was something else entirely. Something that could wipe them all out in one blast. "Can you stop it?" Jake asked, already knowing the answer. The alien soldier nodded. "Yes, but I need your help." Jake didn't hesitate. "What do we need to do?" The alien pointed to the sky, where the assault vessel hovered ominously. "We must disable their command center. If we destroy it, the weapon will shut down. Without their command, they'll be forced to retreat." Jake's heart pounded. It was a risky plan, but they had no other choice. This was the moment of truth. It was no longer about the alien or the war, it was about survival. Jake turned to his soldiers, rallying them for one last stand. "Move out, we don't have much time. Everyone, get to the base's defensive lines. I need volunteers for a strike team." One by one, soldiers stepped forward, ready to follow Jake's lead. Rex barked, sensing the urgency, and stayed close to his side. The alien, standing tall beside Jake, prepared itself for the fight ahead. Battle was about to begin. It would be the fight of their lives. Not just for survival, but for the chance to change the course of the war. The stakes had never been higher. And as the first shots were fired, Jake knew this was only the beginning. He had chosen his path, and now, they would either win together or they would all fall. The battlefield was chaos. Explosions rocked the ground, sending plumes of dust and smoke into the air. The sound of gunfire was relentless, echoing across the camp as soldiers scrambled to find cover. Jake moved swiftly, his weapon in hand, his mind focused on one thing: stopping the alien weapon before it could obliterate everything they had worked for. Beside him, the alien soldier moved with remarkable precision. Its alien physiology gave it an advantage, its movements fluid and deadly. It wasn't just a soldier, it was a warrior, capable of fighting in ways Jake couldn't yet comprehend. The alien's eyes were locked on the incoming enemy forces. Its focus unwavering. Jake ducked behind a damaged piece of equipment, Rex by his side, growling lowly as the battle raged around them. He knew time was running out. The enemy's ship had already begun to power up its weapon, the glowing orb of energy visible in the sky, crackling with deadly intent. "We're running out of time." Jake shouted over the sounds of the fight. "We need to disable that ship now." The alien soldier nodded, its gaze shifting toward the enemy vessel. "We must reach the control room. Only then can we stop the weapon." Jake didn't hesitate. "Then that's where we go." With a sharp signal, Jake led a small group of soldiers toward the assault vessel. The enemy's forces had become more aggressive, trying to prevent them from getting close. But Jake's team was determined, each one following his lead with the same fierce resolve. Rex was at the front, his powerful body clearing a path for the soldiers to follow. The alien soldier, however, moved like a shadow. It darted in and out of cover with a terrifying speed, taking down enemies with precision. Jake marveled at its efficiency, realizing just how much they could accomplish if they fought together. The alien wasn't just an ally, it was a lifeline. As they approached the massive assault vessel, Jake saw the control center perched high above the battlefield, a heavily guarded tower. The glowing energy orb above it pulsed with increasing intensity. Every second brought them closer to disaster. Jake knew that if they didn't reach the control center in time, the entire base, perhaps even the world, would be destroyed. Ran, the wind kicking up the dust around them, the noise of the fight growing louder as they neared the vessel. The alien soldier led the way, its advanced sensors picking up enemy movements before Jake could even see them. With each step, they got closer, but so did the enemy. The battle had shifted, and now it was about survival. Suddenly, they reached the base of the control center. A heavily armored door blocked their path. Without a word, the alien soldier approached, its hand pressing against a strange panel on the door. There was a low hum as the door began to open. Jake's pulse raced. The door revealed a narrow corridor, illuminated by cold, harsh lights. The air inside was thick with the smell of machinery and fear. The alien soldier motioned for Jake to follow, and they slipped into the darkness. They moved quickly, knowing the clock was ticking. Every step they took felt like an eternity. The sounds of the battle outside faded, replaced by the metallic creaks and whirs of the ship's inner workings. They could hear the faint hum of the weapon powering up. Almost there, the alien whispered, its voice now steady and sure. We need to reach the main control room. It's where the weapon's power core is stored. Jake nodded, his grip tightening on his weapon. They had one shot. If they failed, the weapon would be unleashed, and nothing could stop it. They reached a heavy steel door, and the alien soldier once again approached the control panel. Its fingers worked quickly, tapping a sequence of buttons that Jake couldn't see. There was a moment of silence, then the door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the room was bathed in a strange green light. In the center stood the weapon, a massive orb of energy, floating above the ground, its surface crackling with raw power. Around it were several alien technicians, their attention fixed on the weapon's readings. They didn't notice Jake and the alien soldier slip into the room. Jake gestured to his team. "We take them out fast." With one swift motion, they moved. The alien soldier was the first to act, darting forward with deadly speed. In a blur, it incapacitated the technicians, its strikes precise and controlled. Jake followed, his soldiers covering their backs as they advanced on the weapon. They reached the control panel, and Jake turned to the alien soldier. "How do we stop it?" The alien hesitated, its eyes focused on the swirling energy. "We need to disable the core's connection to the ship's power source. There's a relay in the back of the room. If I can get to it, I can shut it down." Jake glanced at the alien, understanding the gravity of the situation. "Then go. We'll cover you." The alien soldier nodded, its movements graceful as it sprinted toward the back of the room. The enemy's forces outside began to push harder, their reinforcements flooding in. But Jake's team held their ground, defending the alien's path. Minutes passed, each one feeling like an eternity. The weapon's energy built up, and Jake could hear the low hum of its power growing louder. The alien soldier reached the relay, its hands working quickly, pulling wires, pressing buttons, disconnecting the core from the ship's energy. Then, in an instant, the room went silent. Jake's heart raced, but before he could speak, the alien soldier stood, turning to face him. Its expression was one of relief, but also something else. A sense of resolve. "It's done," the alien said, its voice filled with determination. As the last of the technicians fell to the floor, the weapon began to power down, its crackling energy subsiding. The massive orb of destruction lost its glow, its hum fading into nothingness. Jake's team let out a collective breath. They had done it. They had stopped the weapon, but the war wasn't over. This battle, this victory, was just the beginning. The alien soldier had shown them the truth about their enemies. But now they faced a new challenge, one that would take them beyond the battlefield and into a new world. The alien's eyes met Jake's one final time. "This is not the end," it said quietly. "It is only the beginning." Jake nodded, understanding the weight of those words. The war was far from over, but with the alien by their side, they had a chance. A chance to end the cycle of violence, to rebuild what had been destroyed, and to forge a new path. One where humanity and the alien species could finally find peace, not through power, but through trust. And for the first time, Jake believed that peace was possible.